no desire to actually solve this issue before the election. They don't want this president to have a victory on another serious issue confronting the minority communities. This is pure race politics at its worst.
We also need Congress to act. There's meaningful police reform legislation in his name. You just heard the Vice President speak of it. She helped write it.
That is going to be up to Congress. And right now, there are negotiations that are happening. There are leaders in both sides that are having those discussions.
There are negotiations happening about police reform, and Senator Scott is right. There was not a want on the Democratic side to move forward with that before the election. In fact, Democrats used the filibuster, which many of them have called a racist measure, to block Senator Scott's bipartisan piece of legislation. Meantime, the DOJ has launched a big investigation into the Minneapolis Police Department to decide whether they have used excessive force for a long time. Let's bring in our panel. Harold Ford Jr., former Tennessee Congressman, CEO of Empowerment Inclusion Capital. Morgan Ortegas, former State Department spokesperson, and Trey Gowdy, former Congressman from South Carolina. Trey, it is a little rich to hear all of the calls for police reform after what fell apart really at the last minute with Senator Scott's legislation.
Yeah, Brett, I mean, rich is one word. I mean, literally, Cory Booker and Dick Durbin and Kamala Harris are in the room with Tim Scott. And Cory Booker has always been an honest broker when it comes to negotiating. But Kamala Harris looked Tim Scott in the eyes and said, I don't care how many amendments you give me, we're not here to negotiate. So we could have had something last summer, but she put her political ambitions ahead of what's best for the country. Ironically, Brett, a week later, I'm sitting on a beach in South Carolina with Tim Scott. Karen Bass calls. There are other Democrats of goodwill that want to get this done. Unfortunately, Kamala Harris wasn't one of them.
I'd like to be sitting on the beach in South Carolina, but that's beside the point. Here we go. So last night, you had the president reacting to this verdict. And in that speech, Harold, here's a part of what he said about the country.
There's systemic racism that's a stain on our nation's soul. And this takes acknowledging and confronting head-on systemic racism and the racial disparities that exist in policing and in our criminal justice system more broadly. The battle for soul of this nation has been a constant push and pull for more than 240 years. A tug of war between the American ideal that we're all created equal and the harsh reality that racism has long torn us apart.
He and Vice President Harris talked about systemic racism a lot in that speech. I just want to read from this Washington Examiner op-ed really quickly. It's entitled, "No, Mr. President, the soul of America isn't racist." President Joe Biden is already starting to push people too far with his constant refrains about how racist this country is. He's overstating a very weak case, and he risks becoming like former President Jimmy Carter, when Carter's so-called malaise speech had the annoying effect, in the insightful words of Vice President Walter Mondale, of urging people to be as good as the government. The public and American culture are better than Biden says we are. He may soon see a backlash against him, not just for hectoring us, but for enlisting big government's might to promote and enforce his racialist agenda. I mean, interesting points there. I would like to get your reaction, Harold.
So good evening. Thanks for having me on. I think that whenever we are having conversations as a nation about how good we are, how better we can be, how bad we have been, how bad we may be at the moment, it invites an introspection, it invites an inspection of whom we are and what we want to be. And sometimes we hear things that are uncomfortable. I got to tell you, I don't know many of my white friends when I grew up in both Memphis and Washington whose parents had to sit with them and give them instructions on what to do if they see police officers, how they should behave. And that's just a fact of life for a lot of black families in the country. That doesn't mean that we're bad people. It just means that we can be better. What I was most relieved about last night, Brett, was that person, Derek Chauvin, who did what he did, who committed that murder, he was a bad guy, is a bad guy, who just happened to be a police officer. I was pleased today to see Merrick Garland and others do everything they possibly could to elevate the notion of good policing and to say that good policing is rewarded. Communities are made safer if we go after bad policing. Would you have said it differently than Joe Biden or Kamala Harris? Any of us on this panel, Tim Scott included? Maybe so. Did Tim Scott's legislation fall prey or victim to politics? Maybe, perhaps, but it wouldn't be the first. What I hope now is that we're able to rise to this moment. And I said last night, I hope the president and the vice president, I believe they are ready and willing to come to the table to negotiate and find common ground and compromise and pass a serious and meaningful police reform bill.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess, Morgan, what I'm talking about is on the campaign trail, candidate Joe Biden talked a lot about speaking to our better angels, yet the messaging seemed to not be that as of late. It does not seem to be speaking to how good we are as a country inherently, overall. Yes, there are some bad folks out there doing bad things and have for years, but justice worked, in the words of many lawmakers yesterday. Your thoughts, Morgan?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I love hearing my friend Harold Ford explain this in his perspective. If we had him in the Senate, maybe Tim Scott's legislation would get through and it'd be a little bit more bipartisan than what we're seeing today. And Brett, what you said is I think resonating with many Americans. And I think there's a lot of people that made the calculation in November that they were going to vote for Joe Biden because they thought, you know what, there's just too much drama. The temperature is up too much in the country. We need to be able to come together. And it's just too much. I want it dialed back. I think there was a lot of people who voted for Joe Biden for that reason and thought that they were getting a moderate, calming, older, more genteel president who would be able to bring the country together at a very fractured time. Instead, what you're seeing is an agenda that is a very, very hard drive to the left. It's not bipartisan. It's not inclusive. And in fact, it's taking the tenuous place that we are in society now and it's kind of lighting it on fire. I don't see anybody willing to bring both sides together. And it's a huge problem that has me very concerned for the country, Brett.
Quickly, Trey, Merrick Garland and what he's starting to initiate with this investigation, eventually, if it leads to something in Minneapolis, they want them to sign a consent decree, which essentially would mean federal rules on how they police there, right?
Right, it's a patterns and practice lawsuit in addition to the individual lawsuit with respect to George Floyd. But I think, Brett, our viewers need to keep in mind the overwhelming majority of policing in this country is done by state and local cops. So if you really want to improve law enforcement, don't run for the Senate, run for sheriff.
There you go.